Welcome to the Galen Trombley Show. You can find me on Facebook at Galen Trombley, on Instagram at Galen Trombley, and on YouTube at Galen Trombley. Spelling GaelanTrombley. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the Galen Trombley Show. Welcome, everybody, to the episode 181 of the Galen Trombley Show. You can tell that I'm rusty. I was just telling our guest, who I'll introduce shortly, our last podcast was January 21st. I had some people asking if we just stop doing podcasts. The answer is no. I'm trying to ramp up the podcast, not stop it. But the over the last month, between a mixture of travel, mixture of COVID-related, not people getting COVID, but just, not being able to come in or having quarantines and all that stuff. And then snowstorms, we've had a lot of cancellations. So most of the guests are coming on at some point. So I believe this was a reschedule. Yep. And then I have one tomorrow, which was a reschedule from last week. And we just kind of have this. We're getting everybody in. It's just there's a little bit of a gap there. Hopefully I'm going to update some stuff too for the podcast going through. Again, this is start of year 4, so I'm like, it needs a little bit of a facelift. So we're going to do a few things, hopefully over the next month or so on that. But yeah, we're not done. We're actually ramping back up. I do have some good guests coming on, including the one I have on today, and more throughout the year. So we are looking forward to year 4 of the Galen Trombley Show. My guest today on episode 181 is, make sure I pronounce it correctly, Anass Bouayadi.
Yeah, there we go.
Bouayadi?
Got it. Bouayadi. Yep.
Bouayadi. So Anass Bouayadi is Director of Services at National Business Technologies. Mm-hmm. And I met him once before, thought he was good. We connected over a couple things that I'm sure we'll talk about today. And then he goes, you need me on your podcast. I think he actually said that verbatim, you need me on your podcast. And you were an interesting guy when I talked to you originally. So I'm like, hey, we're gonna learn some stuff today. So Anass,
yep.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you. Happy to be here.
People that do not know you, give us a rundown. Who are you? Where you came from? How'd you get here?
So born and raised in Morocco. For the one who does not know where that is, it's North Africa. So kind of close to Spain. If you're top north, Tangier, you can basically see Spain. I think it's kind of a few miles. If a lot of people before the plane tickets were expensive, most people they were traveling by bus, which you kind of go to Tangier, take the ferry, cross to Spain, and then go to Europe. After that, after high school, left Morocco for France for school.
Here, and let's pull that. Yeah, well, you pull it up too. Yeah, move that right up.
See this. Can you hear me well now?
Yeah, much better.
Oh, look at that. You can't tell it's my first time.
That's that. Hey, we're breaking you in early on this, so you're good.
Thank you. So yeah, age 17, 18, left for France. Lived there for 7 years, got my bachelor degree, worked there, and came into US back in 2012. And since then, Plattsburgh is home.
So Morocco, and again, Northern Africa. I always think, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but do you ever watch Game of Thrones?
Yes.
You know when they have the scenes where it's a lot of orange and red and bright and sandstone and things like that. I always picture obviously Egypt, Middle East.
Yep.
And realistically, Game of Thrones is pretty much North Africa, West Asia, and Europe. Is right? Is that kind of their made up world? But that's kind of how the geography and the climates react. So I always think of that it would look like one of those sandstone kind of areas in Game of Thrones. Am I correct on that?
Yep. Actually, the funny part is,
were you an extra in the Game of Thrones?
No. The funny thing is, when I was a kid, I think it was summertime. Few of my friends, they were like, "Yeah, we're acting in this whatever TV show. If you want to come with us." And I didn't even tell my family. I got on a bus. I found myself in a different town, acting for some TV show. I cannot even tell you what the title is. And it was kind of like some medieval TV show where I was. I don't remember what I was, but they gave me like a sword and you had to fight and this and that. It was kind of like funny. But other than that, yeah, I mean, a lot of movies, even American movies, they turned them in Morocco because the climate, the geography, and there is this city in south of Morocco, like I don't know if do you know Marrakesh, or have you heard of Marrakesh?
No.
So it's kind of like really touristic city.
Okay.
And not far away, a few hours from Marrakesh, there is Ouarzazate. And this city, it's kind of like the Hollywood of Morocco. There is like Kingdom of Heaven. Probably you watched that one.
I have not, but
The scene, the castle, everything, it's still there. It's just there.
there was a place that I was watching that had it was a lot of red. I don't know if the sand was red or the mountains were red or like sandstone, but it was someplace in Africa. Is that in Morocco?
So Marrakesh, the name Marrakesh, which so basically Morocco, it's a mix of it's the door to Europe basically, or the door to Europe or Africa. It depends from where you're coming. But Morocco is the native people are Berbers. And the Arabs, they came in from Middle East long time ago. So there is like a mix. Before that, they were the Romans, so they came in from Europe. So it depends where you are. You may not take that. You may not like think that those people are kind of like Moroccan, except when they start talking to you. And with that said, Marrakesh, the name which it's Berber, it means the Red City because like the earth, the ground, whatever was red.
So I think that's where it is then. We talk about, so maybe it's the same place. I just forgot the name or whatever. But yeah, they just said like they did a lot of shoots there because of the geography. And I think, I mean, Game of Thrones too, they did a lot in, I believe it was Northern Ireland when you have a lot of those, the green and the cliffs and the seaside, like kind of seaside, but I guess seaside, oceanside.
Yep.
You know, fight scenes or, you know, just, it's kind of cool that, like they look almost like fantasy like, and I'm sure there's some stuff done in post editing.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, a lot of that stuff is geography on Earth. It's just stuff you don't see. It's almost like you'd see it in like a National Geographic kind of movie or like a climbing movie.
Yep.
Like I watched one climbing movie back in December. It was the guy that ascended the 14 peaks that were over I think 8,000 meters.
Yep.
Did you watch that?
No, but I want to watch it.
It's impressive.
What do you think? Is it?
So the crazy thing with my favorite climbing movie I think of all time, I make it sound like I've seen a bunch. I've seen like 3. Is Free Solo with Alex Honnold, the guy who climbed El Capitan in Yosemite. I actually have 2 books on it. That I need to read through. That I want to read through.
Yep.
One called The Impossible Climb. I'm just looking at it now, so it makes me sound smarter than I am. But Impossible Climb, and there's Man on the Wall. Oh, Alone on the Wall. So basically, he climbed up with nothing but shoes and chalk. No harnesses. And if you've ever looked at El Capitan, it's a pretty iconic. I actually have it on my computer. It was Apple had it as like a generic screensaver.
Yep.
But this massive like rock face.
Mm-hmm.
And he became the first person to solo it without free solo, meaning with no harnesses, nothing. So it's basically like a real life Spider-Man.
Yep.
Which is insane.
Yep.
But so that one was really cool because that was like Jimmy Choo and all those guys, like the expeditionary guys that went up and they were climbing up with him because they're getting footage of him like on the wall. So they're actually like climbing up with gear and ascending parallel with him. And getting all this cool footage, and I remember one of the things. I won't ruin the movie for you. So actually, I'm not even going to say the line, but it was like your hands are sweating. My hands are sweating now talking about it. It's just like I don't know, like weird. But the guy that climbed the 8,000 peaks, 2 things that I found that were fascinating about it is number one, he had almost next to no footage of the actual climb because you think they're climbing. It's snow, it's the elements because they're so high up.
Yep.
And they were all in. And I forgot the name of it. The Impossible Project, I think it was. I think he called it the Impossible Project was the name of it. But or no, the Possible Project, or whatever it was. I think it's that. It should still be on Netflix. So everything is in either Nepal, China, or Pakistan.
Yep.
So you have like K2, you have Mount Everest, obviously is the biggest one. But they also said a couple of the other ones that were just like, which one was the most deadly? The most deadly one, because of course I'm a Wikipedia guy when I watch movies, so I'm like fact checking stuff, or learning more about it. The first or second one that he ascended, when you talk about like deadliest mountain, like basically how many deaths per people that try to ascend this, you're like, wow, what's like 1 out of every 10,000? The hardest one was 1 out of 3 people die climbing this thing. Wow. Or sorry. Yes, 1 out of 3 people die climbing this mountain. So you're basically going up with a 33% chance of dying.
Yep.
And in the movie, there's deaths in the movie, like not him or his people, but there's people that die. And so most of the footage in the movie is really him on the peaks, which obviously looks just like a snow-covered mountain with nothing because they're so high up. But like the elements are nasty. They have a little bit of footage from the mountains, but most of it is like they just climbed up and was like taking a photo. The fastest time that someone's ever done this, climbing all 14, was like 6 or 7 years. Wow. His goal was to do it in 6 months. And the funny thing about it was everybody thinks about Mount Everest because it's the highest one. Yep. But think of Mount Everest as being, it's like going to a commercialized city. Like Mount Everest now, it's still a hard climb, don't get me wrong. But the whole idea is it's been glamorized to the point that it's the highest peak standing on top of the world, that they literally have like caravans of people climbing up this thing. So it's not like you're going up by yourself with a couple, like a group of, people that are helping you. Kind of think of anybody's watched like the Tour de France. There's always like the main racer, but they have a team of racers, right? You know that from as a French guy, or French at some point, I say. But it was kind of like that with mountain climbing. You go up kind of with a group of people that help out. But Mount Everest was insane. Like the amount of people trying to scale Mount Everest while they're up there. So that was, of course, you think Mount Everest, like nobody climbs that. I'm like, oh, no, people do it all the time. Yep. And there's seasons they can go up and stuff. But yes, the mountain climbing, I got away from that. But yes, the footage is very nice. And those things actually live in America, or in the world. So, Anass, Morocco, give us, like, what's some stuff, because if people don't know much about, besides it's all obviously filmed for Hollywood and it's the gateway to Europe, but what else is part of the culture of Morocco?
Probably most the information that people don't know. Morocco was the first country recognizing the United States as a country back in
recognizing the United States.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. At that time, now it seems kind of like different, but at that time was one of the powerful empire, I should say. At that time, and actually I'm reading, because in Morocco there is 4 imperial cities. By imperial means they were at one time the capital of Morocco. So there is Meknes, the city that I'm from, Rabat, which is the capital right now, Marrakesh, and Fez. So Meknes at that time, the Sultan was one of the powerful Sultan basically at that time. And reading about it, going back to Game of Thrones, what this guy did, because Morocco, it's kind of like a bunch of tribes. Like there is tribes in the north and south and this and that. And when he was a sultan, he was just fighting against tribes because they couldn't, you may consider that guy as your king, but your tribe is your tribe. And apparently what he did, he took all the slaves and he built an army from there. And from there, basically, he started crushing like the tribes and this and that. And going back to Game of Thrones, I'm like, did they get did they get
close
the
to home?
like from there? Food is amazing. It depends where you are. From where I grew up, if you go for hours to each direction, it completely in a different area. Like you can do in US, but you have to travel for a long time. From there, for hours, I'm either at the ocean or desert or mountain. And the culture it's really amazing. other facts, I mean, the it's kind of like funny because you grew up with what they teach you at school. It's not just about Morocco. Teach you about like Europe. Teach you about U.S. In fact, when I met my wife, I knew more about U.S. than her. Like asking, like, let me tell you about U.S.
Let me tell you about your country.
Yeah, tell me about your country. And it's kind of like amazing. I think the relationships, it's amazing since like hundreds of years. And I know that a lot of Americans, they kind of like travel there. It's 7-8 hours if you go either from New York City or from Montreal. And again, it's safe and it's beautiful. And you should visit.
Well, I would. It's. I've never been to Africa, but Africa is obviously massive, and I would even say Asia. I believe Asia is the largest continent by geographical, land and everything.
Yes.
But if you think about it, like Russia makes up a lot of it, and there's not a lot of people that live in Russia. So, like, I think if you really went to Africa, I don't know the populations. I don't know like how populous. Obviously, Asia most populous because of China and India, both there. But I think if you take the amount of how big Africa is, it's a stunningly big continent.
Yep.
And I mean, you guys are at the very tip top of Africa.
Yep.
But I would love to go. Like traveling wise, I'd love to go to all the continents. I think it'd be cool.
Yep.
Even Antarctica, I think it'd be cool. But Morocco sounds cool. Like we talk about the food. We were talking the other day about food. Like, and it just sounds good. And I think what we would be like a foreign kind of meal. I like trying different styles and from different countries because everybody's got their own spices and flavor.
Yep.
And I had a buddy on, Jonah, who was traveling around, and he talked a lot about he went down to South America and like every culture just has different food and every town has different food. Yes. And like you said, whether they're tribes or villages, they have their own different little spin on things. Yep. And I remember going to D.C. once, and I went to an Ethiopian restaurant.
Awesome.
I've never been to an Ethiopian. I mean, the first time I ever went, but it was just like, it was a weird, you ate like by peeling off bread as like, I don't do it in Morocco.
Yes. I mean, everyone, it's kind of like one dish. The way most houses basically, it's the dish in the middle. Yeah. And everyone go for it. The part is, which it's funny, is you can eat only what's in front of you. So you're not crossing the other side.
Do you spin it? Do you spin the plate, the bowl, or is it just?
No. It's like one. So one of the known dishes, it's like tagine. So it could be like with the chicken or beef or lamb or what it is. It depends where you are and Morocco or the region. But most of the houses, there is basically, so it's couches. Imagine like the couch, but Moroccan side. It's all around like the room. There is one table in the middle. And when you sit in the couch. You start eating. There is one dish in the middle. Everyone is around that dish. Everyone kind of like you eat by your hand. But the funny part is because everyone is sharing one meal, you just eat what you can afford eating. So when you're done, you're done. But the other person is going to just keep going. So somehow you're not wasting food, if you will. But after that, you can have some Moroccan tea, like mint, sweet Moroccan tea. And I kind of like love that. And after that, you don't even have to leave the table. You just lay down on the couch and take a nap.
It's like a Thanksgiving,
yes.
It's like a miracle right there. Just,
yep.
That's what I found was I've never had Moroccan dish, but the Ethiopian dish, it's the same thing. You're sharing. It's like family style, like we call family style in obviously America. But there was something about Ethiopian. You had like this bread. It was like almost like a spongy kind of. Think of like almost like a soft taco, but spongy. I forgot the name of it. Naan is a bread, right?
Yep.
Something similar to that, maybe.
Yep.
But you would tear it off, and it was kind of spongy.
Yep.
And you would use it, and imagine like taking and like pinching it almost like a taco.
Yep.
But or imagine like you're trying to pick up dog crap with like a paper towel.
Yep.
You kind of basically are taking the food and you're grabbing, whatever the meal is. And there's a lot of sauces, so it's soaked into the bread and you would eat it. It was really good.
Yep.
But I think we were able, I don't know if we could reach over. I mean, we did. It wasn't like if you wanted something on the other side, you'd reach over. But I feel like it was probably something in the middle we could spin, almost like if you go to like a Chinese restaurant, you could spin it around and like kind of the, different cities have it. But it was something about, same thing, sharing the meal, because you say we had 2 other people here, we're all sharing it. We could be, oh my God, that's so good. And everybody can try it.
Exactly.
And I find that most times, like you order your meal, like, how's your meal? You're like, oh, it's good. I'm like, mine's good too. But then it's like, there's no like swapping of the food. And like this past week, I was out of town. A good friend of mine, and he's Chinese, and I don't know if that's a cultural thing for them, but he always, when I first met him years ago, all of a sudden like started just picking at my food. Like I'd be eating, and he would just like, whether it's chopsticks or fork, he would just like grab a little bit of my food and eat it. And I was like, what the hell, man? And that was when we first started.
Yep.
Now, whatever this is, 15 years later, I'm hanging out with it. I'm like, what do you want to get? What do I want to get? So we each order separate meals. We always sit next to each other. We get separate meals, and we literally just get extra plates, and we'll give each other meals. So we always get to try 2 meals. But there's something about like, that's, oh my God, that's really good. Like, yeah, this is better than that. Like, but it's like you have a little bit more connectiveness. So I'm assuming that's kind of the draws
exactly
you in.
The same concept. Yep.
What do you miss most about Morocco?
I think a little bit of everything. Family first, of course. Friends. And food. It's just it's different. Even my wife, she's really good at like doing Moroccan foods. Especially when I met her. And I'm careful what I'm saying. So she wasn't into food at all, but no, she's really good at it. Like either Moroccan food or Asian food, or any type. Like she'd just go for it. But still, it's even here. Even if you go to a Moroccan restaurant, it's not the same.
Is there one around here?
Montreal?
Oh,
or here?
No, in general.
Like, yeah. I mean, if you go, like. Boston, there is like a huge Moroccan community there.
Okay, but you're talking about big cities.
Yeah, just big cities. In Montreal, you can find like there is like a good Moroccan community in Montreal. But the thing is not the same. It's kind of like the air, the spice, the environment, the sun, all of that. When it's not there, even you're eating it, it's not 100%. The other side is when you leave your where you grew up, your country. It could be even here when you leave your town and you go to a different city. Somehow time stop for you, because when you go back, you feel like stranger. The kids are grown up now. The friends, they move on. So you're like where that time went.
Yeah.
So, but it's always. It's the language, it's evolving, which it kind of like amazes me, and in a way that even it's the way we spoke, but they always find like new words or new way to say it.
Yeah, you were saying that like some words that you grew up saying like have completely evolved already.
Yeah,
and like it's so. But you think that's influx of other cultures that come in, or influx of other dialects that just happen to kind of like transition their way into the everyday lingo?
Yeah. I mean, it's just even in Europe, you see that. Like in France, because there is even in the US, we'll start with US, like South, there is like a huge like Latino community. So even people speak English, there is a lot of kind of like Spanish words. It's kind of like part of the culture because it's different. Europe with the North Africans, like there is a lot of kind of like Arabic words into the French language now, and it's part of the language.
Well, it's kind of like too, if it can't translate to the new language and it gets stuck in the new language.
Yep.
Like think of like déjà vu. That's French.
Yep.
But like there's not really another way that we can say it. We just know it as the French word, but now it's become a part of English.
Yep. Yep.
So if you Okay, I'm just trying to think what the question is going to ask you. So like if you go to Europe and like the Moroccan heritage of going into like Europe, you're talking about like bringing like a dialect in there.
Yep.
Do you find that like what areas has Morocco influenced? Is it mostly Spain? As you find it's other? Is
Oh,
it
it's more than that.
so you think it goes into like Greece? 'Cause
Greece, no.
a little
But
too far.
Spain,
Or
France, Dutch, Netherlands, Italy, Belgium, all of that. There is like huge Moroccan community, and as an example, when we lived there, my wife and I were like kind of like because it's easy to travel from France to if you want to go to Spain for a weekend, basically take plane. I don't know, like $50-$70 back like round trip, and you're completely in a different country. But the funny part is, I think we went to Italy with the friends, and we were trying to find our way. And one of my friends was like, "Yeah, I speak Italian. Let me get this for you." So he went to this couple and try was like "Buongiorno," and I don't know what he was trying kind of like to say.
Excuse me.
And
Or
yeah,
excuse
excuse
me.
me. And I'm like, "Let me deal with that." And he just started talking Moroccan to the couple. Because I knew they were like Moroccan. I kind of like and I told him, I said, we can maybe go to different countries here, and I don't have to speak their languages, and that's kind of like good in a way that because there is that community there, you can use that, you recognize them, and you can use that.
What? So you can speak what 3 languages?
Yes, only 3.
Only 3.
Yep.
Slacker. So only 3, which is Arabic, French, and English, right?
Yes.
So what is in Arabic? Obviously, was your native original.
Yes.
What's the easiest language from somebody from Morocco who speaks Arabic to be able to transition into?
I think English, it's easy.
Out of all the languages, you think that's the easiest?
Yes. I didn't speak any English when we came in here. I mean, just like, hey, how are you? But other than that, it was kind of like a challenge. I think I told you that before when we met. I was asking my wife to do everything for me, even asking coffee. I'm like, just go for it. Answering the phone, I'm like, that's not for me. But the thing is, the listening part, that you have to be not afraid to go and learn. And that's the huge part. And I always told my wife, I said, even we had kind of like this idea that we may leave. I mean, the first idea was like, maybe we're going to leave France for Italy. We had like, yeah, we could maybe go and live in Italy and learn the Italian. And it sounds like, romantic, I guess, for some reason. But I told her, like, if we go and live in the U.S. for X reason, I cannot live somewhere where I cannot speak the language. Like, you need that communication. You need to communicate with people. And again, it was hard at first, but you pick up the language.
It's kind of like
easy.
what's it called? Just like putting your feet to the fire. Just like, just figure it out. Like, it can kind of
Yep.
toss you in
Yep.
the water without
Yep.
floaties. I was researching because I was like, can I speak another language or learn another language?
Oh, you can.
Oh, yeah, it's possible. People have done it,
possible.
but
Okay.
I took many years of French.
Yep.
But I think what I was telling you about before, it's the thing I have a hard time with back when I was trying to learn it. So, junior high, high school,
Yep.
even took a little bit in college. You're kind of forced to take it because it's a curriculum.
Yep.
And therefore, you attribute it as the same you would with math or English or science.
Yep.
I love reading. I didn't like reading in school
Yep.
because I was forced to read it. I was forced to read books I didn't really want to read. Even if they were halfway decent books, I was like, I want to go play sports. And I find that I think language now, I think I can learn better now than I did back then. Probably just we learned more back then. Like I watched like a child. They're sponges. They pick up on everything.
Yeah.
But I also find that as you're older, there's some things that make it harder to learn, but then there's also like mindset and kind of things that you can draw and find connections that would help.
Yep.
So I think now if I tried to learn a language, I could do better. So I was trying to hack it. I was like, what's the easiest language for someone from, that speaks English to learn?
Yep.
And the easiest language, I'm going to see if you can guess it. It's not a normal language. Listen, you've heard of the country. I'm just saying it's kind of a unique,
Unique.
unique in the sense of like, I'll give you a hint. It's not French. Like, it's not like a,
Yep.
It's not like
Is it still in Europe?
It's Europe. Yep.
Scandinavians? No, that's like hard. Maybe? I don't know.
know what's funny? I'll give you a pass. Yes and no. The hardest, I believe, the easiest one for is Norway.
Yeah, Scandinavian. No, I said.
Is that
One of them.
Scandinavian? I was thinking Denmark. So Denmark is what would their term be called? It's not Dutch. Dutch is
No, that's the Netherlands.
Netherlands. What would Denmark starts with
Danish.
Danish. It's not that. Yes, you're right. It's Norway, and I think number 2 I think was Swedish. So you're right. It's Scandinavia because there's a lot of similar. A lot of the words are very similar.
Yep.
The spellings are similar enough that you could look at that and you'd be like, "That's potato." And it might have like one word, one letter different, but you could kind of read it almost similar.
Yep.
And they said, I think when you start using the pronouns, it's the easiest transition for pronouns versus like, I know French, like il, elle, tu, vous, like all those. It's just an easier way to do it. Now, I have no desire to learn either of those languages, but again, I'm just saying in general, that would be, I think if I had to pick, the hardest language was Chinese.
Yeah.
And which makes sense, but part of me thinks Chinese would be a good one to learn because it's so popular.
Yep.
I think in the United States, so Spanish would be the one I would learn.
Which it makes sense.
Yeah, it's the most.
Makes sense.
Like
actually, Arabic, it's one of the hardest languages as well. Not the way you speak, because it depends. Arabic, like I believe there is 22 Arab countries, but each country they have their own dialect, which I told you basically before, and that what kind of like make it challenging. But when you go to the like Arabic language in itself, it's really hard, hard to learn because there is so much thing to learn how the word could shape, how you can just add something to it and it mean completely has like completely different meaning. But the dialect in itself, it's example, I think I told you that before. As a Moroccan, we get what the Egyptian says, but they don't get us. We're speaking the same language, but the dialect it's different.
So when you say, so explain dialect a little bit. It's like the Arabic dialect, you compare to, say Egyptian, right?
Yep.
Is Egyptian considered Arabic? 'Cause I had a different language.
Yes, and it's Arabic. Like the main language, it's Arabic, but because of the culture, and because of the lot of like how you pronounce words, how you see them. Like the Moroccan language or the Moroccan dialect, it's Arabic with some like Berbers, with some French, with some Spanish, and you can like make the language.
Are the words spelt the same?
What do you mean by that?
Like if you were to write like river.
When you write in Arabic, but when you speak the dialect.
So if you were to write down what you wanted to speak, in theory, everybody should be able to understand it.
Yes, if you write it in Arabic, but if you write the dialect, they not.
So there's different writing also.
No, like in school you write in Arabic, but like in general, like in the street, you just speak the dialect.
But if you were to like physically write it out, if I was to like write you a note and I was Egyptian and I wrote you a note and I slid it to you.
Yep.
Could you, even know different dialects, could you understand that?
Yes.
And then if you did the same back to me, even though I couldn't understand you speaking it, I could still read it. But I know what he wants.
Yes.
Okay. Because
Yes.
like I'm saying, like if you write in English, if somebody has if someone from the South that has a very thick accent goes up to somebody in Boston and they got a Boston accent, like I know accents.
Yep.
But you're still gonna write the word paper, Paper.
The same. Yep.
Like be like, yeah, it's paper, but they're gonna be like paper. I don't know, like a Southern accent. But like I'm just like they're just gonna have a tone to it. Like I was like Boston, and like half the time you're like, what the heck's he saying? Like I know he's saying English, and you kind of make it out, but it just is a little, just enough to tweak that, with the ear. Even your accent's thicker, so it's like I would say like Arabic, and you're like Arabic. Like you kind of have like you roll it really like.
Because if the French actually.
Okay.
It depends like how like the languages that you learn and how you learn them and which one you learn first and make it different. Someone you may see if someone didn't speak French, even if they are from Morocco, you're gonna hear like a different accent because it's almost coming from Arabic to English. The fact that I learned French, like you said when we're talking about like Denmark, and you said and I said Danish, and you said Danish.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like go from like, oh, it's A, in English, but it's A in French.
Yeah.
And when I was actually learning the alphabet in English, my wife was always laughing at me because it was like A, B, C, D, A. It was like just A, and she's like, no, it's A and E, and so it was like no difference for me. But again, pronunciation wise, with the accent, it depends from where you are. I think, which I didn't even know that before. Let's say people from Middle East, they don't have like the Arabic language, the alphabet. There is no P on it.
Okay.
So they don't pronounce P in the word. They pronounce B. Like park, they may say bark. But because of the French that we learned in North Africa, we can see the difference between B and P.
So if you were to, like, say, use the symbol for P in your outfit, there is no symbol for P.
In Arabic language, no.
So how would that be written? They just would leave it without the P.
I mean, it's different. It's completely different.
Just because it doesn't.
letters.
Yeah, because it doesn't make sense. It's not like
it doesn't make sense. Yes.
But when they say it, though, they would still pronunciate like a P sound, but it's come out as a B.
Yes, because they didn't grow up with the P in the language, so they don't pronounce that.
So when you write Arabic, you write right to left, right?
Yes.
And then top down?
No, just right to left.
But like if you're writing on a sheet of paper, you go right to left, right to left, right to left. So you would still go top down, meaning you like start top of the, it was not like you start from the bottom and like slither your way back up. Like
No. I mean it like probably like the Chinese or even the
like
Hindi.
Can you like write your name?
Yeah.
In Arabic.
So basically, it's just this, and you write it like that.
That's so funny.
So A, N, A, and this could be S.
So when you say this could be S?
Yep. I mean, it's seen in Arabic, but it's kind of like the same, like seen, S.
So if you were to sign your name like in Arabic, like you're in Morocco, you just have to sign your name. Or just write it like how you would like in print, not like signature, but...
Oh, actually,
difference?
funny. No, I mean, because of the French culture in Morocco, like most people, when they sign it in French or their name in French alphabet. But before, I was signing my name like this, which is my first and last name.
And that's Arabic right there.
Yep.
So how many symbols are there? You said 22? No, 22 countries are Arabic.
Yes, but I think it's 26 letters, like the alphabet.
So what would be like ABC? What's the first three letters of Arabic?
Alif, ba, ta.
So there's a little bit like A is always like an
Yes,
alpha
like
kind of.
A, B, S
a
for
version of it.
seen. Yep.
Like ABC is French.
Yes, ABC is French.
ABC de
A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Yep.
It's coming back.
There's
There's some cobwebs there, but W,
Yep.
right? That's double U.
W. Yep.
WYZ.
Yep.
Yes,
Look at you. Look at you.
I know. I mean, that's 10 years of taking French at a very low level, but we got it. So, no, but so people that couldn't see, like, I mean, obviously, I just said it. You write right to left. It was just funny seeing someone write right to left.
Yep.
So lefties thrive in that environment. We're right. People always complain if you're lefty, you smudge the paper.
Yep.
So back then, it's like I'm lefty, man. I'm like Arabic all day long. So that's pretty cool because I always to me, Arabic always just looks like squiggles and stuff. But I mean, every symbol looks like that.
Yep.
Like Chinese and they have like.
It depends because the when you take it to the calligraphy, like the Arabic calligraphy, it's beautiful because they write from left to right or right to left or top down or down up top. So if you're not familiar with that, it's kind of like hard to read it. If you go to old towns or old cities, and there is like beautiful walls or the door of some castle or something like that. Yep, it's the way they write like the words of sentences. It's just beautiful.
Well, this looks very like when you see someone do like like meditation, or you just have someone do like they kind of have like all the symbols, and they have like, and I don't know what country, if that's Indian or something like that, but like when you look at the alphabet, I get it. I'm assuming these like underneath, like are versions, or maybe like N, M, L, K, D with like a dot underneath, D, a D with a line. But the funny thing, like it almost looks like J, but there's multiple versions that look like J, multiple versions that look like a 9. A lot of versions that look like J. It's like a hook. Imagine if you were going fishing and you had a hook, but like at the top of the hook was like a different variation. Now, like that's like looks like a capital J with like a little squiggle ass lightning bolt. But then you go here, these three all look the same, except those just have more of like a hook tail, and this one's more of a jagged tail. Which is, but it, like if you really look at the alphabet, it looks like a couple B's, looks like a lot of J's, looks like a bunch of C's, a bunch of U's. But I mean, obviously, you can decipher that easy. Like when you look at that, you're just like, yeah, like I know. I mean, like it sounds so funny. Like I don't know if I've ever actually looked at the Arabic alphabet, and like this is the same thing. It's just you put a dot in different spots.
And the sounds kind of like different, because if you start from the top, like you have the first letter.
Oh, that's
alif,
right. That's your A. Yeah.
And then you have like ba, ta, and then with the 3 dots, it's like tha, and then you go. It's kind of like just depending when you put. That's why I said it's hard in a way that when you change like the dot, and then you add which we call in Arabic like like in Arabic we call like harakat, which it's the vowels, like in French or English. If you put it in the top or the bottom, it makes completely different sense for the word.
So you just go and like you'll do like a little hook and then dot 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 or dot dot or dot. Like you don't make it look like a diamond shape like that. It's just that's just like a dot.
I mean, the thing is, at the beginning, before, most countries, like I said, like Morocco, North Africa, they didn't speak Arabic before the Arabs from Middle East, they came in. A lot of, I think like Somalia or countries like that, or Sudan, they didn't. And the issue or the problem they didn't had like the which I said like harakat. It was just like this. If you grew up reading, it's no problem. But if you didn't grow up reading without harakat, you look at the word, like me and someone else, I can look at it and I can read it in a different way, even it's exactly the same word.
Well, that's what I was wondering, like if they put 2 dots in versus 3 dots, like your mind could self-correct that and be like,
but it's more than that. Let me just show you. So
this is so fascinating.
So I'm gonna just write this. This is car.
That's car?
So car, it's sayyara. So for me, I see the word, I read it. But when you can add like I said, which we call harakat. Sayyara. So you add this, and I know it's sayyara. If I put this in the bottom, it becomes siyara. So the thing is, if you're not familiar with this, you may read it completely in a different way. And it's exactly the same word. So that
means car too?
No, it could mean something else.
So by putting those lines, so basically, if people can't see, it's just like moving lines above, like you had a couple like basically just like straight lines on the top, and then you just kind of put it on the bottom. Basically saying if I erased it and put it on the bottom,
that is the line.
But that'd be a different actual letter.
It is like this one, which I mean, just put. So there is a B, which in Arabic it's ba. So it could be here ba, B, because you put it in the bottom, or if you put like a little how we can tell that.
Kind of like that little lightning bolt thing?
Yeah. So it could be like boo. So it depends what you are putting there. The word could be different. Pronunciation.
But that in a row, that's just 3 versions of B.
Yes.
So it's not like that was an actual word that you created. It'd just be like,
yeah.
So if you, but adding that, if you were to add like the next letter was say another symbol, then you'd have 3. I mean, it'd be the same as if we did like, you know, I was saying B, like B-E, but there's really no other version with B. Me. Like M-E is me, B-E is B. You know, then there's probably another one. That would actually just be the 2 letters, but it's the idea of like I'm thinking like do re mi fa sol, but like but if you go through like that would be enough just to change the symbol.
Yeah,
So that's a totally different letter when you add that symbol.
Yeah, if it's a word, you just change this, and it could mean completely something.
But there's
different.
only 26 if we looked in the alphabet. Like you changing it's only really the 3 variations of that because a lot of there was 3. Would like be a J with 3 different like.
Yep, but when you pronounce that, it's different. Like, let me see.
Well, it kind of be like M and N. M has one more loop than N typically when you write it, but we pronounce it M and N.
Not exactly. I mean, it's just, like the vowels in English, you have like A and E and I, and so that's what represents this, kind of like in Arabic.
Oh, so that's what changes the letter, not really the main B.
No.
But could you leave that main B just as that main letter?
Yeah, you can. Like when you write
Almost
the
looks
letters.
like
When you write like the letters or the words, you can. Like you're just using the letters that you Googled basically. But if you add this, that what makes different sounds of the word. Because, like I said, if you're not native Arabic speaker, without this, it's gonna be hard for you to know what the meaning of the word is.
So, can you read? How would you read that in Arabic? Does it translate?
Like education.
Yeah, any of that, like your name, work, experience, and education. Like, can you read that in Arabic? Is there a translation for that?
Yeah, I mean, it could be like عمل ودراسة.
And that's that whole thing.
Yeah,
that just seems so quick.
Yeah, so like this
Here,
experience.
wait, pull the mic so people can hear you. Yeah, say it again. That word.
So education is gonna be like تعليم, and experience is gonna be, or دراسة actually, for education. An work experience could be like عمل, which is mean work. So it could be like عمل ودراسة.
Wow.
But you could read it either from here to here or here to here. It doesn't really matter.
Oh yeah, because they're interchangeable.
Yep.
Education, work experience, and education.
Yep.
But the thing is, like the Arabic language, does it have a deep? Is your voice just deep, or do you have like a deep pronunciation of it? You know, when you go some places and they just seem like they have some places I go to Germany get like a very harsh sound, but then some like Arabic, it sounds like you have like a very like deep kind of like throaty way of pronunciating it.
I think it depends. It depends the regions. It depends the countries. My wife tells me that I have a different not voice, but deep voice if I speak either French or Arabic.
So how would you say, like, give me that same word but in French, that same sentence?
Expérience et éducation.
So I think you have a little bit higher pitch on that.
Yeah, it's kind of like it depends where you are, and when it comes like to most of females like in Morocco, it's kind of like deep voice, which is kind of like funny. They are like yelling, screaming all the time, but it's just the way they talk. And for most of the males, I think it's just, it depends. It depends who you are. Are you like the kid, the father, the grandfather, things like that.
What's your favorite language to speak?
That's a good
Do you have one that
question.
really jumps out? Like if I had to pick one language to speak forever, it would be this.
I think
and taking away, like I would say English is probably the most universal, right? I would think in the world.
Yes.
Overall, most people probably know English because of America, but like taking that out, like what of the three would be?
I think it depends. I mean, I if I was someone who kind of like into like poems and things like that, Arabic will be beautiful. There is like some deep because that's how there is when you go before there is a period in the Middle East where it was no written, like the history, no one wrote the history, and they know the history through the poems because people who they were like,
You have to translate it.
yeah, they were like, if you were like a poet at that time, you're kind of like really, you're a famous actor, let's say, at that time. So no one wrote the history, but if you hear the poems, you know what happened at that time. So like poems in Arabic, it's kind of like beautiful. French, I mean, I think I like French, and in a way that when you're there, French people are the culture. It's a little bit different, and I think French maybe now it's different because even you watch French movies now, and there is a little bit of English, which before French they kind of, or France, they protected the language.
Yeah.
Like English, anyone can speak English, and that's what makes it probably easier because people, they can just learn it. I'm talking to you, even if I made a mistake, you're not gonna correct me. You're gonna try to understand what I'm saying and move on. French, they're gonna correct you. That's just part of.
Is that kind of like a nationalism kind of thing? Like they feel very strongly about the country? Because I find like.
I think so. I mean, it's kind of, they are really protective. Like they want you to say it right. They want you to say, like, if you don't say the sentence right, they're gonna correct you.
Because I think like if you go to England, they're more formal with the language of English, and then I find. Because really, at the end of the day, United States, like I always say, is like a melting pot. It's just a bunch of people that just moved out. Basically, everybody's like, we're going to West Coast, baby, or West Hemisphere. They just head out there. But it's the, like, I think that's one of the cool things about the U.S., but also I think because it's such a young country that people are just like, what? English? Yeah, I don't know, whatever. Like, I mean, even just locally, like people, like, you go to different towns and people's got a different dialect, you know, than others. And you can almost tell, like, even locally, you're from like 20 minutes that way, right? And you know, now people that tell me, you sound like Canadian. And I'm like, well, I'm sure there's variations of us with Canada because we just grew up so close that, you know, that even people that are French, you know, just come down, we just kind of pick up that, like the A and kind of like, we don't say A, but you know, you pick up kind of that term. And I've had multiple, like, even just going like 5, 6, 7 hours away and people can pick that up. And or even going down to Albany, people can pick it up like, oh, you from Canada? Like you sound like you're from Canada. So, fascinated with languages. Just, I like cultures. I like learning about cultures. I mean, granted, I've visited France, never been visit Morocco. I would love to go to Morocco.
Should
at some point. Like I said, I do hope to travel when I get older. You know, but I think the going to different countries and seeing, like, I've been to, you know, England and Ireland and France and Italy, and, you know, each of those places just have a different, just the language, the food, the style, the architecture was massively different. Pretty much like we went from London to France to Italy, and every time you went to a country, you went back in time like 200 years. And it was cool though, because like, you know, the buildings were just different, and the streets were different, and just the decor was different. And but again, it adds that. It just is cool. Like, there's so many cool places in the world that, like, you start bringing out the, you know, the cultural aspect. And I think right now with the Olympics going on, it's just neat to see. And this is a weird Olympics because I find, and maybe it's because there's not a lot of people there because of like families and stuff, but for the most part, a lot of the competitors are very good sports with other competitors. And I don't know if that is just purely, like, at a certain point, when you become a professional athlete, at a certain point, you are so good that I think if you're going up against other people that are so good, you just have a mutual respect for them because you know how hard it is to climb that mountain peak. And I find that majority of the time, high-level athletes, even though they are competitive almost to a fault, that I think a lot of them are still humble enough to, like, shake hands, congratulate the other person. You beat me. Like, it's, and I think being able, you see a lot of people that play like local sports or high school sports, and they're more chippy. And then when you get to college, it's a little better. And then when you get to the pros, it's just, you know, I find, so when you're seeing like snowboarders or figure skaters and like people from other countries congratulating getting beat to someone else. It's kind of cool. It's cool to see that because you don't see it all the time, but it's fun when you see the cultures and how they, you know, whether it like could be someone like patting you on the back, someone giving you a hug, someone giving you a kiss on the side of the cheek, like someone bowing to you. There's just different ways of embracing and acknowledging, and you get to kind of see this cool glimpse into the world all at one time. Like, how do people from different countries react in luge or in figure skating and or even just hockey? And it's cool. So, Anass, I'm gonna steal this back from you. So So your role right now, director of services, that's still dealing with IT?
Yes. So basically, like
Can I s-
leading.
That's
Don't
not
look
yet.
at it. I'm not taking that. Come on. I'm kidding. I'm
You want something to
kidding.
click? So I can keep I want to make sure I preserve the Arabic writing here. So
So yeah, I mean, what we have the imaging part in the IT and IT part. So part of my job is not just leading the team, but working with each member of the team. We have guys from here. They have been in the business for over 15, 20 years, so they know what they are doing. Working with them, it's kind of like amazing. You learn so much. And management, it's not people, they see management in different ways, but for me, management, it's you're there for your people. You wanted them to grow, you wanted them to learn more, you want to just be there for them when they need you, so you can help them and anyway, and a strong team become like strong family, and strong family they can do anything.
so now you're more of the managerial role.
Yes.
How long have you been in this role for?
It's just recently. It's been a few weeks now.
So, but you've had to step into. So this year, out of all, so do you actually? First question for you: do you like managing?
I do. I see kind of like that. You make anytime, for me, anytime you can make a difference in people's life and help them getting their full potential, and you see that, it's amazing. And it's you may do it at work, you may do it just in general. And if you met people that they know me, I kind of like push people around me. I push myself and I push people around me, because any one of us, we're capable of doing so much. So you need just maybe to hear that from someone else, saying like, hey, go get that. And for me, it's been just kind of like simple. You set the goal, you hit the goal. It's as simple as that.
How long have you been in IT? Since 13?
No, since 2009. I think I graduated back in France in
That's right,
2009. Yep. So it's been a little bit over a decade now.
So when I look at so we work at a small business.
Yep.
Independent company. So basically, I got into my dad owned the company. I got into the business in college, just as kind of at the time, a stepping stone to something different. Never left. I liked it, but the whole idea was, I spent years really pushing myself to hit a high level individually.
Yes.
And same thing, set goals, hit goals. All day long, set goals, learn, hit goal. That was like figure out how to get it. And then what happened was, because of what I was able to accomplish as like an individual, it offered opportunity for us to grow, and it offered opportunity for others to want to join the company.
Yes.
Which again, naturally, that's great. That's like a cool thing with a company is you're growing. But so topped on that, I kind of by a product of me pushing myself, almost pushed myself, or am pushing myself out of the roles that I was doing before.
Yep.
And what's happening is, because I've had to, get thrust out of a little bit of just like the sales and just like me, Galen, as the individual agent, and push them up into more of a broker, manager, leadership role.
Yep.
To me, I've been taking steps back, in the company, and thinking, okay, where was I 10 years ago when I was trying to get better at being an individual agent?
Yep.
I worked a ton. I made a ton of mistakes. I learned from those mistakes. I got better. Rinse, repeat, and just kind of kept working my way up the success ladder.
Yep.
And now that I'm pushed up almost into a completely different position, still within real estate, so I still have that knowledge, but into leadership, into management, into setting expectations, holding people accountable, setting vision, setting goals, communication, motivation, whatever that might be. These were all things that you had that one-on-one dialogue in my head, and I just did it. I set goals, I did it. I didn't have to ask anybody. I just, Galen, do it. Galen, okay, got it. Let's do it.
Yep.
So now I find that I'm falling in a good way. If I'm like, I've graduated up to the next tier, but I'm finding I'm at that very start of the tier where now I'm like working really, really hard to get the skill set of a leader, manager.
Yes.
And my hope is, and right now I'm making a ton of mistakes. I'm learning a ton, reading, listening, watching, learning, and talking to people.
Yep.
But it's the next step that I have to do. It does not come naturally to me. And right now I find that I like it. I like being in that position because for me, it's the growth that I kind of envisioned. But it's also like now that it's here, like it's really like hard.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, now we talked about mountain climbing earlier. Like now I'm at a new peak or new base camp, basically going up to a new peak. And now this one's a little steeper and a little more challenging and a little more windier and a little more, and now it's trying to figure that out. So how have you, and it's a massive work in progress for me. That's why I like talking to people. I didn't realize this originally, but people that are in that position, how have you or even though it's only been a couple of weeks, how are you making that transition? What's some things that you find that you're excited to do? What are some things that you have to work on? What are some things that you want to focus on? Like kind of explain the new role.
I think like what you just said, that's what makes it exciting. That I always said that the hard part of anyone, could be business, could be individual, is when you get into a position or into state and you get static. Static, it's not good. Mm-hmm. Static, that means you fight to keep what you have. But if you keep growing, whatever you have, it's there. No one's going to touch it. But you keep growing, you're kind of like preserving what you have, but you're getting more. You're learning more. You're getting more challenges. Mm-hmm. Leadership, again, it's not that easy. It's not for everyone because a job in itself, it's easy to do. If you have your job, it's to build a house, you know what to do. You're going to go and build a house. His job is to make sure people are building the house. You have to be there. You have to watch. You have to make sure they are doing the right thing. So anytime you put people into the plate, it's challenging. But that challenge, how can you work with your team, with your people? Because at the end of the day, we have the same goal. We want to hit like a goal so we can hit like a different goal. And that makes it challenging because everyone's different. We are different. We all are different. Siblings are different. Even parents are different in the way how they see things. And for myself, I love making mistakes. I believe that making mistakes, it's kind of like the beautiful thing that you can have because you learn something from that. If you don't make mistakes, I don't know how you do that. It's kind of like you need that. You need that portion where, okay, this thing, it didn't work. How can I make it working? You learn from your environment. You may even learn from a kid. You may learn from a child. But the thing is, I actually read this book I think it was a few years ago. I think called Misfit Economy. And the idea was kind of like how whatever we have, like we have legal and illegal business, let's say. So legal business with the hierarchy, the admin side, the people, and this and that. A drug business, that's illegal, but the way they are doing it, you have the people who they cultivate, the land, people who sell, people who do, like they have CEO, CFO, COO, call it whatever. So what is business? It's illegal. And the thing is, a lot of even businesses, they learn from that. It's legal, but they learn it and they make something legal. It's a mistake. It's not fit into what we think it's legal, but it's there. I think it was part of, years and years ago, we had, what was it called? Like you could stream movies, but online. It was illegal to go
like pirating movies.
The thing is, Netflix jumped in that and made it legal. But now you pay for that and you're watching.
Like Napster?
Exactly. So it's kind of like the thing is, how you look into how people do things, you learn from that. It's just when it comes to you, it like copy and paste does not work. You need to adapt to what you are taking, and you need to make it working for your environment. Adapting. If my Moroccan culture, it does not work in the US. Like I had to adapt when I left for France. Like it's French culture. I had to adapt when I came into US because here it's different. And a lot of people they have kind of like issues because they fight what they shouldn't fight when it comes to adapting to your new environment. So you have always to adapt. Being a single, it's not being a married, it's not being a parent. It's completely different.
Yeah.
Like you have to adapt to the situation. One of the goals, it's kind of like how can I make sure that my kids succeed? That's like a challenge. You're a leader within your kids because you want to be like their role model. You want to be want to be there for them. Whatever you do with your employees, it's kind of like a small version with your kids. So no matter how you look at it, there is always learning. There is always mistakes. There is always, but it kind of like you have to set that goal. And I'm seeing myself years from now. I'm seeing myself here and there. And I think that's how we keep. That's how we keep going. If we get static, that's kind of like it's bad. It's just not.
Well, I heard the line like if you're not learning and growing, you're dying because it's
yes.
like you said, static. If you're static, you're just not. And that's like anything. Like if you just don't get up and move, like as an elderly person, you just sit around all day. Like you're going downhill quick, you know.
Yes.
And I think like you said, the adapting part, the learning part, the mistake part, I love mistakes. I try to preach to like everybody. I'm like, I care less if you make a mistake. Mistakes are good.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna put your hand on the hot burner once, and you're not gonna do it again. Like it's kind of like you're hitting going and hitting a bunch of electrical fences, and like which one? That one's okay. No, not touch that one. Not touch that one. This is the right path. And in each day, I like problems. I like solving problems.
Yes.
As a kid, I always liked puzzles. I liked word problems. I liked all that. And now I find that life is just like a big puzzle for me.
Yep.
And there's good, there's bad, there's fun, there's stressful, there's all the emotions in it. I try not to put too much stock into anything, meaning like if I have a hard decision to make at work, or if I have a conversation I don't want to have, or have some type of conflict, then it's like at the end of the day, it's something that's happening. Like let's not over embellish it.
Yep.
You know, let's kind of be a little more in that even keel, not go too high, not go too low, and just kind of, maintain. And I'm also a bit like the one thing I've learned in that always kind of like pushes me when I feel overwhelmed with stuff.
Yep.
It's the idea that I always think that like I'm a believer that things are meant to happen for a reason. Like I've always been like, and I kind of look at that as, I don't know if it's right. I don't know if that's true, but in my head, it just keeps me like even keel where, there was a reason I met you for some reason, but then it's like, if I make a mistake, then I'm like, this is like the end of the world. Oh my God. Like I should have made that mistake. Yep. It's not the end of the world. It might be a big challenge.
Him.
But,
I shouldn't invite him.
Yeah, I shouldn't invite him. But he asked so nicely to come on. He was a cool guy. Like whatever. But the whole idea is like, if there was a bigger problem, like I might look at that as like, oh, it's stressful. But then when you actually overcome it, like, wow, good thing I had that big ugly problem in front of me, because if it was just a minor thing, it wouldn't have been as impactful in the greater scheme.
Yep.
Question I was going to ask though, and I don't want to dive too much into this, but I think people that don't have young kids or are parents at this point shut the show off. But like when you look at, like you talked about being single to being married to being, father, like when you start going through that hierarchy and you look back, I always find this kind of funny. When I look back at prior to meeting my wife, single, nothing going on. And back then you thought you had problems and you thought you had too much to do and you had all this crazy stuff.
Yep.
Then you got married. Not as drastic, but now you have another person you're responsible for. You have another person to run stuff by, and not like the ball and chain, but more of like out of respect. Like do you want to do this? I'm going to go here, letting you know, because it's just, you do it with your mom and dad, you do it with a friend.
Yep.
And then when you start having kids, now it's like you have that, but now you actually have responsibility. Exactly. And I found that hierarchy, every step of the way, you get more responsibility and you get less time to do stuff.
Yes.
But at the same token, as you're going through that, you're also more prepared through experience to handle that and the wiser aspect.
Exactly.
And then you start to learn how to be more efficient because you need to be. It's out of a necessity.
Yep.
And I find that that's my world right now. Like I have more responsibility now than I ever have in my life.
Yep.
I have 3 young children. You have 3 too, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we both have 3 young children, and we both have, we have a spouse, we have jobs, we have all this stuff, and then it's like
I think we said we have the same cars for us and for the wives as well.
we do.
Yeah, which is
We have literally the same. Well, we'll get into the cars in a sec, but yeah, so you actually one up me, I think, in one of the car categories. But yeah, it's the same thing. Like, but it's crazy. I wouldn't want it any other way because it's fun.
Yes.
It's stressful, but I find that it's rewarding, and like even just the minor like little things day to day.
Yep.
I think because as you grow and you take on more, you become more capable of taking on more resilient. So like even if I'm like, I got all this stuff going on, I'm like, I'll do it. Now if this was me 10 years ago, I'd be like, I don't know how to do all this. And now it's just like, I'll figure it out, there's something peaceful about that. There's something obviously still chaotic, but I'm sure you and I in 30 years are going to look back and have something similar in life, and you'll be like, yeah, I'm fine. Like I can't believe I was stressing out at 30 or whatever, about that stuff, and now it's just like 40 might be worse than 30. Like from what we like, if we were to look back on and be like, I always tell kids that come in for like internships or college, I'm like, you will have no more free time in your life than you will in college. Like college is a cake, walk. Like and like you think you're like, I got so much stuff. I'm like, why didn't you do that task? I was just so busy. I'm like, okay, break down your last week. Give me a rundown of your last week. Let me see if I can find some spare time you could have found time to get that project done, or not scrolling Instagram or watching TV or something. But again, you're a kid. Do what you want. You life comes at you quick, so it's like take advantage. So what do you like about IT?
I think I like the challenge of it's evolving every day. It's changing. Like I said, talk about static. IT, it's a big environment, big world. It could be it could be like the networking, the cybersecurity, the security, and all of that. But when you look at it, especially with technology that we have today, I mean, what we had just last year, what we had 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it's completely different. Mm-hmm. It's just looking at it, it makes it amazed me in a way that what's gonna be next, what challenge is gonna be next, because it's part. We could as human, you could do anything. You could be we're capable of doing anything. But for me, it was kind of like going into IT. I know that I'm gonna have challenges in my life when it comes to the professional life, and we keep doing that. Like even with National Business Technologies, I mean, there is a lot of customers, there is a lot of challenges, and either we have our HQ in Albany or our office here for the North Country, which comes with like taking care of our community. But everyone's different. Every customer is different. Not just the technology part, but the people side as well.
How much day to day, or let's say monthly or yearly, how much do you have to like relearn? Because technology moves so fast.
That's why like you have really to concentrate on something. You cannot do everything. That's why there is a team, and each one of the team are really good at something. And when you combine that knowledge, you become strong. So we're more into, like for myself, I'm more into the cybersecurity. I'm amazed how, especially like the social engineering, which it's people can call you and pass off someone else to get the information from you. People can. There is companies who they hire people to go to big companies, and the idea is how can they get into these companies even with the security and all of that, so they can get to your office and just leave a note and get out. without anyone knowing that I did that. So it's not just a computer, it's more than that when it comes to cybersecurity.
Yeah, so I mean, cybersecurity in the sense, like if someone hacks into your account, like in theory, I'm assuming like you could hack into people's accounts easy if you wanted to.
Don't ask questions like that.
Secret.
I cannot.
That's
I
the
don't do that.
second. That's the second. But like if you know how to, like, basically it's like I know how to stop it. Like then you kind of know how it works and how someone could do that.
Yeah, I mean it's like anything. Basically, if you're gonna fix your car, you have to know what you have inside your car.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like cybersecurity, to be able to help, you have to know how those people they're gonna attack. So you have to train yourself and that.
Well, it's like any type of law enforcement that tries to like catch any kind of drug smuggling.
Yep.
They have to know how that ring works. They have to know how it works in order. I mean, they're not. Again, you talk about the legal and the illegal part of it. Like, I mean, we all know how to, like, we could break into a house and steal something. Doesn't mean we're going to, but the cops need to know how someone would break in and how to catch them. And so it's kind of like, even yesterday, someone I knew, their Instagram was hacked.
Yep.
Because then you get this like bogus email, like, oh my God, I made all this money in crypto and sign up now, blah, blah, blah. But like somebody obviously went in, hacked that account, probably with thousands of other ones off Instagram. And next thing you know, like that blocked out of their account. And I'm sure there's, like, you might be able to go in and like, okay, someone hacked me. You go figure out how to pull your account back up. But like the average person's like, oh, screw it. Now I got to get a new email, new password, new, all my pictures are gone. So, but either case, like I said, it's just the IT world, to me is fascinating for a couple things. One, how new it is, how quickly it's grown, how intimidating it is to a lot of people.
Yes.
Because I'm someone that I'm 32, so I'm from a generation that didn't really grow up with what we grew up with, but we're young enough to adapt to what we have now. Like I say a lot, like I've done I like Instagram for business purposes and everything else. Instagram was created in 2013, 12, 13.
Yep.
So, I mean, I got an account in 13. I had one of the first, I think I had the first Facebook account of realtors in the area. And that was in 2011. And Facebook started in 2004. I couldn't even get Facebook until I was in college. So when you look at a lot of these companies, like Facebook's 16 or 17 years old.
Yeah.
Instagram's less than 10 years old.
Yep.
Even if you go back to like Apple, are you an Apple or an Android guy? Or probably both.
Apple.
If you had to pick Apple, can you work on both though?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm Apple too. I respect that. So I'm all Apple, Mac.
See, you made the right choice on vending me.
Yeah. So, and this comes from an IT guy. You got to talk to my wife because she hates Apple. But I feel like Anass said you have to get Apple. It's just better.
Okay.
They don't crash as much, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, meaning you agree with me?
No, I agree with you. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I've had an Apple for almost 10 years. It's never. I mean, knock on all the wood in my office. It's never crashed on me.
The difference is. This is the difference between Apple and Android, basically. It's kind of like Microsoft when it comes to operation systems. Either you have like Windows 10, we have now. So Apple, they have their own product. So they spend money into one product.
Isn't it called iOS, but it's like a closed circuit or something they call it?
Yep. So it's kind of like either Mac or phones or whatever. You have a team that they work day and night of making a product really strong. When it comes to Android, it's like a system, but different companies, they are buying that system and pouring it into their phones. So computer, it could be Dell, it could be
Microsoft.
Microsoft, if it comes to the Surface, that's their own, they try to make it hard. But it
Dell,
could be
Dell
like
is more hardware, or is that also software?
hardware. So basically, you're buying the operation system, which is Microsoft, and you're pouring it to different brands.
So Android is Microsoft? Or is Android its own company?
That's Google.
Google owns Android?
Yep.
Okay, and then Google created Android, which is an operating system.
Yes.
And then how does that factor in with Microsoft? Microsoft just makes it for the Android platform or connects.
It's kind of like you're buying. Can I say that? You have, when it comes to computers, so you buy Dell. Dell is the hardware. So you're buying your hardware, but you need the software side to make the hardware works. So you have Microsoft. you could buy Asus. Basically, it's a different brand.
Asus?
Yes,
Yep.
different computer, but it's Microsoft who's gonna run it.
What about IBM? What's IBM?
So IBM, they have their own platform. They have, believe it or not, when I was in France, I worked in which we call MVS, that multiple virtual storage. It's an old system. It's IBM old system. Big companies, banks, they still use that system because they couldn't get out, and there is no other way to do it.
Wow. Okay.
And they still using that. IBM was one of the first companies that they wanted to go into PC, personal computers, but someone thought that it was a bad idea. They gave it to Microsoft. Guess what?
Bill Gates ran with it.
Yep, here we go. Microsoft now, it's kind of like the biggest company when it comes to operation systems.
So Apple and Microsoft both have their own operating systems. Is there any other operating systems out there?
I think there is. Yeah, I mean, you have like Linux. You have what's the other ones? That's not coming to my head. Linux is one of them. A lot of people, they love Linux because it's kind of like simple, but it's not. It's not Microsoft, and I mean, kind of like people may not like it in a way that they need to do this and that, and people are used to Microsoft more than other operation system. But the most, Microsoft is number one. I should say maybe like Apple number two, and you have a small ones.
In Apple, the thing with Apple is Apple iOS is only on Apple products.
Yes.
Yeah, like Microsoft, like you said, could go on Asus, could go on
Yep.
Dell, could go on.
Yep.
Does Microsoft actually make its own computers?
Yeah. Surfaces.
Oh, sir, that's right. Yeah. Yep. Now, they've also made it where they can be interconnected slightly, right? Because like I have Office for Mac.
Yep.
So I mean, I Page or something because I'm like I grew up on Excel.
Yep.
I'll be honest, Apple's pages and numbers I think are terrible relative to Excel.
Yep.
I just like Excel. I like Word doc. And it's more universal.
Yep.
But pretty much everything else, like I'm iTunes. I do iMovie. I bought Adobe, but I don't edit as much anymore.
Yep.
But I think if I had to redo it, I'd probably get Final Cut.
Yep.
But it's still the idea that we start looking at it. I think that Apple is universal, it's simplistic. The AirDrop, the functions where I can copy here, paste on my laptop. It's just like it just speeds up my production.
Yep.
And I think it just works. Like I just think it works good. And I think I was reading books, and obviously, I think out of Steve Jobs, I think maybe because he's past at this point, but I think he's comes across to me more iconic than Bill Gates.
Yep.
So Steve Jobs kind of is like Bill Gates will be there too, but like the Mount Rushmore of like tech. And when you look at, Steve Jobs being a CEO, getting fired, coming back as the CEO, and then really just pulling it from almost like the depths of hell, but when they start coming out with, products, and one of the things I found was when he came back and they were like months away from bankruptcy, he basically stripped everything out and just created the iPod.
Yep.
And that just revolutionized everything. And then he's like, all right, we're back. And then he just like iPhone, iPad, MacBook. I just think like I have his book up on my shelf. I want to try to get to that this year. I think it's called Steve Jobs. I don't know. Walter Isaacson wrote it. It's just kind of his biography.
Yeah.
But I'm fascinated by his way of doing stuff because I've heard bad things about him. But then as I've read more, he wasn't as cutthroat as people think he was.
Yeah.
But in a way that I'm trying to, like you talked about, like get the team to improve as a total.
Yep.
And they said that he wasn't someone that, he could have been a dick to people, but at the end of the day, he also wanted to be challenged because he wanted to get to the answer. He didn't care how he got to the answer. He didn't care how it was done. He doesn't care whose idea it was.
Yes.
He was just like, let's get to the answer, and I'm going to push you to get to the answer, and you're going to push me to get to the answer.
Yep.
And I found that was fascinating. I'm trying to take things like that I can use, obviously, on a more micro scale.
Yes.
In as a leadership role.
Yep.
So I've really read a lot about founders and CEOs of like tech companies and CEOs of, obviously other, real estate or different kind of businesses. Like, how do they think? What do they do? How do they motivate? How do they lead? And it's a challenge. It's new to me, but it's fun. You know,
It is fun, yeah.
So from an IT, I guess from an IT perspective, like what's your favorite thing to work on? Is it just cybersecurity?
No, I mean it's kind of like I said, the favorite thing is the challenge. It could be anything, either cybersecurity or networking or security. The thing is, you go somewhere or you're helping a customer, and like most of the time they're like, this thing does not work. It could be as simple as their email does not work or this and that. So it's kind of like easy to look at it. Or sometimes even the email, it could be like hard to figure out what happened to the email, and you start troubleshooting it. You have to work maybe with Microsoft Teams to kind of like get to the bottom of the issues and get it resolved. But the thing is, each customer, they have a different infrastructure, and when you look into that, it could be complicated. And the idea just, how can you make it simple? We have enough technology today to make the life of customers or someone simple. Because at the end of the day, you want to just come here, open up your computer, turn it on, run the things, and it work for you. You don't care, like just saying, you don't care what the back of that, the whole process and how it works and this and that. You want to just click on the button, and the button basically respond to you, and you get things done.
Like one of the, I love technology for many reasons.
Yep.
A lot of it just simplifies life. It's more efficient. You can leverage, it's a lot of stuff. But one of the things, again, that frustrates me, and I say all the time, something crashes. I'm like, I'm not asking this stupid thing to do anything it can't do. I'm just like, just work. It's kind of like anything else. Like it's like, I'm not asking this thing to like cure cancer. I'm literally just asking it. I just want to be able to turn it on and send an email. Like, so I always find that I love technology, and then obviously I'm sure many people say this until it doesn't work anymore, and then you just curse the thing out, and you're like, I'm just going back to paper and pen, But I think that's one of the things, and then there's so much to it, and I think we kind of talk about like the intimidation factor, I think, for a lot of people, but then learning how it works. I really don't care. I think at some point in time, if I had time to just sit there and research it or read something on it or watch something on it, I think I'd be fascinated. It's like anything. How do they build skyscrapers? I find that fascinating. How do you build something that high up in the air? Like it, and I think this crane crawling system, and it's cool, but it's like stuff that you like. Yeah, how do they build that? How do they build bridges across like riverways? Like how do they anchor the posts? Like the engineering feats that I would be fascinated by, but again, IT just kind of is the same, just on a computer.
Yes.
But it's still, again, very fascinating. But I agree. I want to just click, open it, let's go. Like, I don't want to have to deal with it. What's your, actually, quick question. What are bots? Bots meaning like fake accounts or people that, if you go on like Instagram and someone posts something, all of a sudden you get a bunch of likes and like comments and everything else, but they're just these bots that go on. I'm sure they've done some type of coding or algorithm to, on a keyword, and then you're going to automatically post this, and it goes. So that's how that works.
Yeah, it's basically, it's kind of like fake people, which they are not people. They are just like robots. It's an algorithm basically who they run, and there's a bunch of. It depends what request from the algorithm, and they, like you said, you said that right. You just go and you put something on Instagram, and you see kind of like the like or things like that. It's just one way,
like, to promote it on this.
Yes. So
now, could you set that up if you wanted to?
You could. I mean, you can learn that. You can even learn it.
It's
like
easy
today. Yeah, I mean, today it's just the time that you wanna put into learning things. Before, it was hard because it was no reference. It was kind of like, I need maybe to go to school. What type of books I need?
You're figuring it out, yeah.
Now it's just YouTube. If you want to do that, how can I write like language in Python, which is one of the languages, and program like bot to kind of like go on Instagram or any social media and do things that I want. And if you look, you will be amazed how many people, they start their IT career. They don't know anything about IT. because it's kind of like affordable now, you can learn anything and online.
Oh yeah, that's where you're going to start seeing like college education go down the like. I think, especially with the cost of it.
Yep.
Well, one thing, it's so expensive. I think because naturally it's like people aren't going as much, and you're gonna like realistically, courses, training, learning from people that know what they're doing, first world first person experience, like that's the kind of stuff that is going to teach you. Like find a mentor, find a course, find a video.
Yep.
Like I bought a video. Casey Neistat. He's used to do all the vlogs. He's a YouTube guy. So what? Long story short, he puts out this course. He's followed by millions of people. A very good filmmaker.
Yep.
But then went from like making films to then went to YouTube. So now that opened up obviously that whole space, and guy gets paid millions of dollars to make movies. So he posts a movie and like millions of people see it like in 24 hours.
Wow.
So he came up with a course, basically just saying like, I'm not saying this is a right or wrong way to make video. This is just how I make videos.
Yep.
But the techniques that he uses, that he's just teaching, and all of a sudden you can do it. And next thing you know, you could be, creating a Super Bowl commercial just because you learned the talent off of a course that cost me like $200 to buy.
Yep.
But I'm like you go to film school. And he's like, he basically called it the Casey Neistat Film School. Well, for $200, I feel like I can get a level up on most kids that could probably come out of like a college with that degree just because you learn these techniques. Because I just like bots, you hear about them more and more. Then you start hearing about how like Chinese and Russian bots are being infiltrated into the U.S. to kind of stir shit, basically, and where people just getting people fighting, but they're not even fighting with each other. They're fighting with the bot that's trying to kind of poke the bear.
Yep.
What's your thoughts on NFTs and crypto? Have you knowledgeable on that stuff?
I mean, there's a lot of opinions. It's kind of like, for me, it's hard to tell. It's somehow like when it comes to crypto, basically, when it started, it kind of like just everyone jumped on it and it was kind of like just flying. Then it dipped. Then now it's going like down. Now it's kind of like the hiking part, where it's like up and down. That one is for me, it's kind of like hard to predict the future. But you see like older, I think it's is it Salvador that now they use Bitcoin as the national money? Is it Salvador? Like some small
I know there's places that they use. I don't know if you mean they change their actual currency to
Yep, they pay their employees.
Oh, I didn't hear that. I've heard that people
Salvador.
Like I've heard like athletes taking their salaries in Bitcoin. I've heard Odell Beckham took his like first year salary in Bitcoin or something like that for the Rams, obviously now Super Bowl champ, but
so yeah, I mean it's definitely changing, but how much you have like the big corporates who's gonna fight that, because kind of like losing money in a way or another. So it's again, for me, it's hard to predict how this thing is going to be.
I think I've always been a person that's tried to kind of stay up on like where things are trending.
Yep.
And then not fighting it, but just adapting to it. And the funny thing is, like you talked about, like if you're not growing, I mean, if you could go back all the way in human civilization, and there was actually a great commercial on the Super Bowl with Larry David in it. I don't know if you saw that. It was about. No, it was actually with a crypto commercial.
Yep.
And he was playing like historical figures throughout history, and basically arguing with what happened. Like, well, obviously we know what happened. He was arguing against it. Like Edison with the light bulb. It's like, I don't think that's really going to catch on. Yep. Like, kind of like it was kind of a spoof on it. But it's true. Like how when Edison came up with the light bulb, how many people were just like, that's crazy. Mm-hmm. Like, well, I'm going to use my candle.
Yep.
And then same thing with like the printing press. Same thing with Model T Ford. Like Henry Ford comes in and says, we're going to like, I got my horses. You're nuts.
Yep.
But it's that forward thinking aspect. And now when you're looking at, like Tesla, obviously we both like Tesla, but like, I saw this commercial on the Super Bowl. This car comes up and they do this. I forgot what it's called. And they, it wasn't pontoon. It was something. It was some electric car.
Yep.
And I didn't catch the whole commercial, But at one point, they put a slogan up that said, or a little line that said, "No Mars." And I think they were taking, obviously, a shot at Elon, but basically saying, like, we're not doing all this other stuff. We're just making really good electric vehicles. And I was telling my wife, I'm like, and Elon just laughed out loud and just said whatever. Because, like, he's like, I see that, and I raise you a better car company while making rocket ships.
Yep.
So, but I look at the idea that, like, I was just, like I said, I traveled last week. And I had a couple people ask me about Tesla because they're like, well, where do you charge? Like, how much do you charge? Like, what happens if you don't find a charger? Like, all the questions that, trust me, like anybody getting one, like I asked myself, you know.
Yep.
But I looked into it. I didn't ask it skeptically, like, that's stupid. I asked it more of like, is it practical? Can I use it? And then you start talking to everybody. And I'm like, well, this is, you know, just the way of the future. Like, I was going to get a different car. And I'm like, you know what? I like Tesla. I've wanted an electric vehicle for 10 years. I remember thinking back as a kid graduating school. I'm like, won't it be cool? That was when the was the Chevy Volt. What was the first one that came out? Was it the Volt or the Leaf or the whatever the one came out?
Nissan Leaf. Yeah, I think you're right.
Whatever the one that came out was like 40 miles to the gallon hybrid, but it was 40 miles of charge. And in my head, I remember hearing this probably back like around when I graduated high school. I was like, wow, like. If I don't travel over 40 miles, I don't travel for over 40 miles in a day normally. So I could just all electric. I don't even have to buy gas. And of course, this is back when gas was $4 a gallon, which, I mean, we're right at that part. But, you know, and the thing was, and not to be, I don't fill up gas cars that often. I fill up my wife's car, like, she doesn't drive much. So like once a month, maybe tops. I was sitting the other day charging and I like looked up at Stewart's at one of the charge stations where the charger was actually at Stewart's. And I looked at him like, holy crap, it's like $3.80 a gallon. Like, I haven't seen this in 12 years. Back when 2008 was like, hey, welcome to the big show, kid. You're driving to college. Oh, by the way, gas is like $4.25. But I just am oblivious to it because I don't have to use it. Like, I drive by gas stations. I don't even look up at the gas prices because it's just, it's out of sight, out of mind. But when people are asking you questions about it, all warranted because it's new to them, but you can tell that there's a level of skepticism behind it. And I'm like, listen, I know, whatever. But I said, think about it. Since I've gotten it, they've added probably 5,000 superchargers just in the last year alone. I said, the supercharging process, well, how long does it take? I'm like, okay, it takes probably 20 to 30 minutes to charge up. Well, that's so long. I'm like, is it? I'm like, I get it. I personally, like, I had to charge up probably 4 times down and back total. And it wasn't like I had to charge full. It was just charge enough to get home. And I didn't find it was that big of a deal. Both times I was like, I'm going to go to the bathroom, grab something to eat while I was charging. And for me, I was like during the workday. So I kind of like just text and was doing stuff while I was in the car. And does it add an extra 45 minutes to my trip? Sure. At the end of the day, how long do I do those? A day-to-day travel? Nothing. I go home, I plug in, and they ask me, like, what is it like at home? I'm like, I wake up every day with a full charge. I have a full, like, quote-unquote tank of gas, whatever you want to call it.
Especially in the wintertime. You don't have to go and, you know.
Yeah, don't have to do anything. So I said the only time it's a slight inconvenience is long travel. But what I will say is that New York just put out the Evolve NY things down in Sam's Club, but I looked at the map. They have them like, I think the goal in New York State is to get them all within 50 miles apart. So really, it's like you can go anywhere. They charge, I think, just as comparable as the superchargers. And this is 2022. I think we would talk before. I think in 10 years from now, there's going to be more EV cars than gas-powered cars.
Definitely.
And you're going to eventually start to see 10 to 15 years from now, maybe sooner, that you're going to look at gas stations as being obsolete. Like, oh my God, I saw a gas station. It's almost like seeing a rotary phone now. And people, I remember the first time someone told me, I actually remember who it was. Oh, they don't have a landline. They just have their cell phone. And I was like, how? They just have a cell phone. They're crazy. Why would anybody have a cell phone? They don't have a landline. And now thinking of it's like, well, isn't that dumb to have 2 phones? Like, but I remember thinking that was so taboo. And this was 15 years ago. And so I think that as like, when people say like, well, it takes 25 minutes to charge. I'm like, in 2022, it does. 2025, that would be 10 minutes. 2027, that might be 3 minutes. You know, eventually you're just going to go in and it's going to be less charged than you are at a gas station. And eventually you're probably just going to go in and it's kind of like charging your phone. You're going to be able to like almost like just back up to something and you're like, oh, you're within 2 feet. We're just self-charging just by proximity. I mean, all this stuff is coming. So when I was talking about NFTs and crypto, NFTs to me are not going away ever.
Yeah.
Real estate, because we're in real estate, I just saw it the other day. So I follow stuff like, kind of stay up on it. I need to learn it better, but kind of like aware of what's going on. Like the Foo Fighters played a concert in the metaverse during the Super Bowl. Like put that in perspective. Like why? I mean, the halftime show was still, but but that was happening. And then you look at the first NFT sold in Tampa, or was listed in Tampa as the first NFT for a home, and the starting price, whatever, was like $690,000. Wow. And what they put in the paragraph was they're like, well, basically because the way that it would be transferred, in theory you could buy it through Venmo. And the idea is, like, in anybody who's in real estate, follow me on this. We know that the closing process, at least in New York, is about 8 weeks, which is absurd. But even if you go to a typical Florida place and it's 4 weeks, if you're like, listen, we're just transferring like LOs, whatever the transfer portion of it is, we're doing it by Venmo, and it's probably going to be closed in a day. So it's like, oh, that's a cool house. Oh, wait, I get the keys? Great, mine. It's like buying a sandwich or buying a coffee. Like, I just get at the end of the drive-thru. Awesome. So, but again, NFTs just started I don't know when the initiation was. I mean, they've only really come out in the last year. And the fact they came out a year ago, and you have people in the metaverse doing stuff, and people are buying homes with them, and people are, what's the artist guy there that just sold was like $100 million worth of NFTs of his artwork, Beeple or whatever his name is, like. All this like crazy stuff is happening so quickly. I think crypto, because you see like Dogecoin, you see all this stuff. But to me, whatever the NFT model is, it sounds like that is taking off more than like crypto. I'm not saying crypto won't, but I almost like allude to like crypto, almost like a MySpace kind of thing, where NFTs seems more like a Facebook kind of thing. Like I think it's a little more staying power. I mean, the whole thing is crazy. Like the metaverse. Like, I do believe you're going to put on, like, Oculuses and, like, sit in your, like, I'm going to sit in my house. Like, and you're, like, going to text me, be like, hey, man, can I go look at that house in Syracuse? And I'm in New York State. I can sell anywhere in New York State. You could say, like, I could get buyers now in Long Island. I don't have to go to Long Island. I can just sit there and be like, hey, let's pop them on. We're in the Hamptons. This is great. So what's going to happen, I believe, is that you're going to end up, real estate is going to be more competitive, because one thing that real estate is a problem with right now is we're always geographically tied to an area. Because of drive time, because of licensing within states. But like, hey, if I can go sell a house in Montauk for $3 million and do the same amount of work as I would on a $200,000 home, like I'll take that payday. So I think that we're going to start to see some of that happen, where if you really think about it, like if the cost of living up here is, lower than say Long Island, but I can get paid like I'm in Long Island, but I'm just putting on some goggles with my foreign buyer from Monaco that or Morocco that is, there's a Monaco too, right?
It is, that's in France.
Yeah, there we go. I was like, I know it's good. But like that could happen. So
it could.
I think a lot of that's going to happen. I do have to get more educated on it to see where the opportunities lie. But I do think because people are freaked out now, and like people are like freaked out by like Neuralink, like putting a chip in your head. I'm like, you say that, but you also didn't think you were going to be carrying around a phone with you all times, all day long. Like a phone was for the wall. Back in the day, you had a beeper. Like now, anybody can get you. And now you have a computer. Now you have a TV. Like, so I love technology and certain things. I do get a little freaked out with like AI, because AI, like. Like AI. That, talk about the robots, like Terminator kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, you know more about that than I do, but still, that's the thing that always kind of worries about if you make these things like too powerful, that you really can't stop it.
Actually, back in, I think it was 17 or 18, Facebook, they developed 2 robots, and the 2 robots, they picked up a language that the programmers, they couldn't understand. They start talking to each other.
That's
Facebook shut down the program. I don't know if they did. That's what they are saying. But it could be crazy.
When you talk about like you're almost your own. Was it like the dinosaurs got extinct by like a meteor, right, or something? It's kind of like your own meteor, right? Did you watch the movie Don't Look Up on Netflix?
Yes, awesome movie.
That was also a very well. First off, I didn't realize it was kind of like a parody comedy kind of thing. But at the end of the day, like that's freaky.
It is.
Because, like, realistically, space is just its own. Like, you're not going to stop space. Like, whatever you do on Earth, like, You get a meteor hit you, bye bye.
Yep.
And I mean, it's happening right now somewhere in the universe, like probably billions of places in the universe.
Yep.
Who knows how big it is? But that is kind of creepy though to think
is.
that literally this one meteorite, like now hopefully, kind of what they tried in the movie to like blast it could work. Maybe send nukes up there, do it. Maybe that would work. But then all of a sudden, does that shift the climate? Does that shift?
Yep.
Does that tilt the Earth on its axis? Next
Yep.
thing you know, it's like people are just going to die because it's too cold or
Yep.
too hot. Like, so it's. I look at like the world and life, like it's almost too perfect at times that it all just happened.
Yep.
Like that's why I always find it's when you get like the science and religion idea going back and forth. I'm like, you can kind of believe in both. I think they work hand in hand because there's something funny about how like all the stuff that happens just in your body, or like when you think like childbirth, like all the stuff that has to happen for this like, you know, thing that started off as a sperm and an egg to come together to create a human, to create this. And then like I'm like, it's almost like overwhelming to think how perfect. And then just like even like little like things in your nose have like all these like weird things that had to develop. So I don't know. What's your thoughts on all like, I guess like tech future? I just kind of rambled on my end.
You cannot really stop progress. That's the thing. Like progress, it's gonna keep growing, keep progressing. That's how human beings are. Like you said, you look a few hundreds years ago, where we are. People were joking about things that gonna go to space and the moon and a cell phone. I remember like I think it was in France, like some old ads back in the 50s, where even they came up with a radio that you can take with you outside.
Yeah.
And they were joking that there is a little TV in that radio and people are talking, and it was kind of like a joke. And today we have like a cell phones. Going back to the electric cars, I mean, that's definitely the future. Is it right now? The difference is when you go and you charge your car, yes, you stay for 20 minutes, but there is no one around you. Like how many times you go there and like, I have to wait. You don't. You go, you charge your car. But the thing is, more electric cars, it's a program. It's someone who's programming that your car needs to stay there for 20 minutes to be charged. They're going to just make that program stronger, which says it's 3 minutes. We receive, like both of us, there is always updates. They send updates to the car.
All the time.
So it's kind of like as easy as doing some adding lines programmation using AI, and it's done. And I believe, and I have to double check that, there is a company in Switzerland. They developed something that you can charge your car. You can charge your car in 3 minutes.
It's already out?
I think so. I have to double check.
So,
I think someone told me that, but I didn't double check the info.
So that's the thing when you talk about, again, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, when they came out a car that had 40 miles of range, and now they're coming out with the Roadster and the super, you start looking at the, I think the S and the X are over 400, right?
Yes.
But they like the tri-motor Cybertruck is 500. The Roadster is supposed to be 500. And then, I mean, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Yeah. When the batteries get better. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but the batteries like in our cars, because people are like, oh, well, when do you got to change the battery? Like it's almost like changing an engine out. I'm like, I was told it was 500 or 100,000 miles? No, 500,000 miles.
Oh, no, 500,000.
Yeah, it was $500,000.
Like it could go, I think it could go to like 1 million, but I have to take care of your car. It's like a phone. The way you charge your car, the way you take care of your car, the way you do all of that, it could live forever. So 500, like 500,000 miles, you're looking at like 15, 20 years.
I did, based on my driving, it'd be 30.
And the thing is, they're not going to stop updating your car. It's like a computer.
Yeah.
Every time you feel like you're in a new car, it's still the same, but you have like new features, new cool, whatever things, not just for you as a driver, but for your kids as well. And it's
like
smart.
the Christmas update every year.
Yep.
And they did like the light show, and then I found people could program different light shows or different music.
I didn't test that one yet, but I have to test it. I start testing it. I didn't know that was that kind of like loud. So I started in my driveway, and my wife was like, shut that thing down. I'm like, okay.
I did it, and it was Carol of the Bells. That was the one that came out. I was like, dun, 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 dun. And it's really cool. But then I started seeing like people on the Facebook message boards or whatever groups, and people were going in and coming up with basically almost like a garage band, like mixing studio thing. But they were able to transfer it to the car. Like someone did like AC/DC, and but it was like different lights, different music, and all of a sudden it was like thunder, and like the light and it was like, you know, kind of looked like those those houses for Christmas when they have all the lights going like crazy. That's what your car can do, and it's so funny. But like, and half of it, those engineers at Tesla are so smart. They just do it for fun. They're like, let's just put this in because it's cool. And they're just horsing around, probably like, you know, some evening, like, oh, hey, watch this, Johnny, and he like does this whole thing, like, let's add it to the car. But yeah, I think all that, like the brakes, I think it's about 100,000 miles for brakes because of with the regen and stuff. And I mean, I very rarely hit the brakes. You do a little bit more in the winter, but I'll be honest, if it's preconditioned and you're driving, like give me that one pedal, that one pedal life, and it's so convenient and just like pulling it off and just slowing down. And I just recently put on. I talked about it. I did put on snow tires.
Oh, cool.
Or winter tires, whatever. The thing is like a tank now.
Awesome.
It was like it's
awesome.
So it's cool, and I find that over time things are going to evolve. But you know, I've talked about it before. I'm just so bullish on like betting on Elon. Versus there's other cars, there other ones are going to come out, but I'm like, that guy just has some innovation.
It's far away,
and he attracts high talent. So it's gonna be tough to knock him out. But we'll see.
There is. I don't know if you read, like, there is a book about him. I read it like a 2 years ago.
It's the one that looks like a chess piece on the cover.
No. It's kind of like he is in the cover.
Oh yes, I listened to that. I listened on audiobook.
Awesome. So it's kind of
he's like sitting with his arms crossed.
I think yes. And the thing is, you know, it's kind of like awesome to see when people with vision like that. You have always people who they like them or dislike them and things like that. But at the end of the day, he made a difference. He set a cap, and everyone know, every brand that they laughed at him are following. And I think one of the the three he tried, because at the end he wanted to have like the sexy word with SX.
Ford took the model.
But
E?
the three, I think, I don't know if it was
E.
Yes, it was like Toyota or Nissan. One of the other.
I believe it was Ford.
Is it Ford that they didn't? Yeah, they took the E and they didn't want to sell it or give it. But the thing is, he believed in an idea. He made something working.
Yeah.
Everyone is following now, no matter how you look at it.
Well, think about it. When's a lot? Like every car commercial you see is an electric car commercial.
Yeah.
Or more and more. It's like, oh, where's that new car? Like, oh, coming out with an electric vehicle. Like Mercedes, electric vehicle.
Yes.
Like, and the thing is with Tesla, they don't run advertising. They have like no marketing department.
No.
Like their marketing department is like maybe putting up a banner at like an unveiling of a new car or something. Like it's a very minor marketing company. But they're just so good that like it is a really cool vehicle. Everybody like when I first drove it, I'm like, it's just a better car. And like there's people that'll be like, they'll say, people will talk shit about it because it's new and like, oh, fancy, whatever. I'm like, well, no, if you really research it and you drove it and got to learn it, you'd realize it's just better. Like for many reasons. And it's only getting better because it's the only car in the universe that gets an over-the-air update and makes your car better. It's not getting worse. And if it's worse, if something happens and they're like, well, that's not as good as it could be, let's ramp it up.
And it's kind of like, you know, for me, it's kind of like type of the car that I can maybe give it to one of my kids. Like a new car.
I thought the same thing. I'd love this car to be the first car.
Yeah, I mean, it's and it will be like new because maybe at that time we get in it, there is an update, and the car is kind of like new, and not like giving that car with, you know, like
all rusted out and
yes. So it's kind of like it could live forever, and like what we see today. Imagine what we'll see in future, 5-10 years from now.
Well, like the autonomous driving. Like I like driving, but trust me, if I knew I could get in a car in Boston, hit go home, and I could sleep in the backseat. I could do work in the backseat. I could do whatever in the backseat, not have to pay attention to the road, and it literally chauffeured me to where I had to go.
Yep.
Like, I look at that from a production standpoint or productivity standpoint of, I don't have to sit there for 5 hours physically driving this car.
Yep.
Like, it can just drive for me, and I know all the other cars can drive, so everybody's just kind of like working together, and there's never car accidents.
Yep.
Basically, get rid of car insurance. Like, it's never nothing's gonna happen. And I just got that 5 hours back in my day.
Yes.
I mean, now this is before he does the boring company. We get to the other side of the country. So, I mean, it's great. I like that kind of stuff. I get excited talking about it. Certain people, you're one of them. I get like Dave Coyer. He came on. He talked a lot about it. And I think people that are, understand evolution and innovation and everything else and accept it and actually, I wouldn't say they don't shy away from it. They accept it, but they also want to push it. Like, hopefully this happens. Hopefully this happens. And it's only going to get more powerful. And I'm excited. Both good and bad, but you think that overall it's going to just work its way out.
Yeah.
They'll figure it out. So,
Yep.
But all right, Anass, anything else you want to add?
No, I mean, thank you, dude. This was awesome. Thank you so much.
Went by quick. I'll probably have you back on because some of the stuff I kind of brush over just because we both don't want to leave the family high and dry tonight, so to get rolling. But Anass, if anybody wants to find you, how can they reach out? How do they connect with you? Questions, services, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn, our website, it's national1927.com. Actually, we just created our website. There is a lot of kind of like cool information, what we can do for our customers, especially up north here. This is our community. Like I said, most of the guys up north here, they have been helping the community for like 15, 20 years plus. And like we're pushing into the imaging, which is printers, copiers, and more IT as well. So anyone who have issues with IT, copier, printers, just reach out, national1927.com.
Perfect.
Or they can check my LinkedIn as well.
I'm going to give one more attempt at this. So Anass, yeah, you said Dennis without the D. Anass Bouayadi.
Bouayadi, yes.
Bouayadi.
Yep.
All right, we're not going to judge my pronunciation skills. It's like French back in the day. I could never pronunciate the words, but I could read it. So that's it. Episode 181 of the Galen Trombley Show. We're out. Thanks for listening to the Galen Trombley Show. If you want to reach me, you can go on Facebook at Galen Trombley, on Instagram at Galen Trombley, and on YouTube at Galen Trombley. The spelling, GaelanTrombley.